Have you ever looked at someone you love and wondered, when did they become so quiet, so still, so different? It wasn't a dramatic shift. No alarms, no big diagnosis, but little by little they just faded. Their appetite, not quite the same. Their energy, not like it used to be. And when you talk to them, it feels like they're not really there, not the way they used to be. If this sounds familiar, you're not imagining it, and you're certainly not alone. Many families notice these quiet changes in their elderly loved ones, especially in the months or even a year before the end of life. But the truth is, most of us miss the signs. We chalk it up to just getting older. We tell ourselves they're just tired, or it's probably nothing. But what if these little changes aren't nothing? What if they're gentle messages from the body whispering that it's entering its final chapter? We often imagine death as something sudden, a fall, a heart attack, a hospital bed surrounded by beeping machines. But for many older adults, the final stage of life doesn't arrive like a storm. It comes like a slow sunset, soft, beautiful, and so easy to miss. And that's what makes this video so important, because we're not here to talk about how to stop death. We're here to talk about how to understand it, to recognize its early signs so you can be present, prepared, and peaceful. When you know what to look for, you can respond with love instead of fear. You can shift from trying to fix what's happening to embracing your loved one with the comfort, dignity, and care they deserve. In this video, we're going to walk through 5 subtle but powerful signs that often appear in the final year of life. Signs that most people miss until it's too late. Some of them might sound familiar, some might surprise you, but all of them carry meaning if you're willing to listen closely. This isn't about giving up hope. It's about giving more presence. It's about choosing compassion over confusion and making sure that in their final season, your loved one feels safe, seen, and deeply cared for. So if you've ever sat across the table from someone you love and felt the weight of silence where there used to be laughter, this video is for you. Let's begin. If this opening resonates with you, take a moment to breathe and stay with us. The journey we're about to take together may change the way you care forever. Have you noticed someone in your life losing weight? Not because they're trying to, but because it's just happening. Maybe it started subtly. Their pants don't quite fit the way they used to. Their belt needs a new hole, or maybe they stopped finishing meals, pushing food around the plate instead of eating it. At first, it might feel like a normal part of aging. After all, many older adults eat less as they get older, right? But here's the truth. Unintentional weight loss is one of the most important signs that the body may be entering its final chapter, and it's one of the easiest to overlook. Let me tell you about Mr. James, a 76-year-old retired school teacher from Ohio. His daughter, Carla, told me he started losing weight about 9 months before he passed. She said, "At first I just thought he wasn't hungry. He said food didn't taste good anymore. But then I realized he'd lost 15 pounds without even noticing." James wasn't on a diet. He wasn't exercising more, but the weight just kept coming off. When we look deeper, we see what's really going on. As we age, our bodies naturally slow down. But when someone is in their final year of life, this process speeds up dramatically. Muscle begins to break down faster. The digestive system doesn't absorb nutrients the way it used to. And sometimes the brain stops sending clear hunger signals. Even the sense of taste and smell fade, making food feel bland, unappealing, even forgettable. So what happens? The person eats less. Their body gets less fuel, muscle mass drops, and suddenly it becomes harder to move, to stand up, to fight off infections. It's a cascade, a downward spiral, and it often begins with something as small as skipping lunch. But it's not just physical. Weight loss can deeply affect a person's identity and confidence. I once spoke with Elaine, a vibrant 82-year-old woman who loved to dress up for church. When she lost 20 pounds in 6 months, she said her clothes hung on her like drapes. She told me, "I don't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. I feel like I'm fading," and in a way she was. Her body was transitioning gently, preparing for its final phase. Now here's something important. Most families try to fix this problem by pushing food, offering big meals, or buying high-calorie supplements. That's done with love, of course, but sometimes it can make things harder. Imagine being full after just a few bites, then having someone keep insisting you eat more. It doesn't feel comforting. It feels overwhelming. Instead of forcing large meals, focus on comfort-focused nutrition. Small, frequent snacks, soft, easy-to-digest foods, things they enjoy, not just what's healthy, and above all, hydration. Hydration, hydration. Sometimes the best thing you can offer isn't a steak, it's a spoonful of applesauce and a quiet moment shared. So if your loved one is losing weight and you're not sure why, don't panic, but don't ignore it either. This might be the body's way of saying, I'm slowing down now. And that message deserves to be heard with gentleness, not fear. Because in the end, what matters most is not the number on the scale, but how comforted, supported, and respected your loved one feels in this season of life. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is simply sit beside them, share a soft meal, and let them know it's okay to take it slow. I'm right here with you. Have you seen this kind of weight loss in someone you care about? Comment sign 1 if this helped you see it in a new light. Your experience may bring comfort to others too. Have you ever seen someone who used to be so full of life suddenly find it exhausting just to get out of bed? They weren't training for a marathon. They just loved small things, watering their garden, making breakfast, chatting over the phone. And now even lifting their legs to put on socks seems like a chore. This kind of persistent fatigue, the kind that sleep doesn't fix, isn't just part of getting old. It's something deeper. It's the body saying, I'm tired in a way I can't recover from. Here's what's happening beneath the surface. In the final stages of life, the body begins to reallocate its energy. It slowly shuts down non-essential systems to conserve what little strength remains. The heart may not pump as efficiently, muscles get less oxygen, even digestion slows, and the brain starts telling the body, rest, preserve, don't push. The result, simple everyday tasks become exhausting. Brushing teeth, walking to the kitchen, having a full conversation. These things can leave someone completely drained. Let me share with you the story of Marilyn, a 79-year-old woman who lived in a quiet neighborhood in Texas. Her daughter Jenna began to notice Marilyn sleeping more, 12 to 16 hours a day. She used to love mornings. Jenna said she'd read the paper and drink tea by 8 a.m., but then she started staying in bed longer. And longer, even sitting up, seemed to wear her out. Marilyn wasn't depressed. She wasn't sick in a traditional sense. She was simply slowing down deeply. This wasn't something a nap or a multivitamin could fix. Her body was sending a message it no longer had the reserves to keep up with the rhythm of daily life. Here's the hardest part for many families. When this happens, the person going through it may feel ashamed. They might feel like a burden, and in some cases, they stop trying. Not out of giving up, but out of exhaustion. That's why your understanding matters so much. Instead of encouraging them to fight through it or stay active, you can shift the focus to gentle support. Help without hovering. Offer rest without guilt. Create space for peace without pressure. Sometimes just sitting quietly beside them is the most powerful support you can give. This kind of presence without demands can mean the world, because in the final season of life, energy becomes a precious currency. And forcing someone to spend more than they have left isn't love, it's noise. Love in this season sounds more like, I see you're tired. You don't have to do anything today. I'm right here. And remember, this isn't laziness. It's not weakness. It's part of a natural process, a slowing, a soft landing. If your loved one is resting more, moving less, and withdrawing from tasks they once enjoyed, don't try to pull them forward. Walk with them slowly in whatever rhythm their body now moves. If this helped you understand what your loved one might be going through, drop a key sign "do" in the comments. Let's help others feel less alone. Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone you love and felt like they were slowly slipping away, even though they're sitting right in front of you? They're still here. They still smile, but something in their gaze feels distant. They forget where they put their glasses. They ask the same question twice in 10 minutes. They no longer join in conversations like they used to. At first, it might feel like simple forgetfulness, something that happens with age. But over time, these small lapses begin to add up, and something deeper starts to emerge. One of the most profound signs that an elderly person may be approaching their final year of life is cognitive withdrawal, when the mind begins to fade gently but unmistakably. This might look like confusion in familiar places, difficulty following a conversation, struggling to find words or names, moments of clarity followed by sudden disconnection. But it's not just about memory, it's also about emotional presence. Many older adults begin to retreat not only mentally but emotionally. They speak less, they engage less. Sometimes they simply sit in silence, not out of sadness, but because they no longer feel the need or the ability to participate in the outside world. Let me share the story of Frank, a soft-spoken 82-year-old former mechanic from Michigan. His grandson David described how Frank went from being the family storyteller to quietly watching from his recliner. At Christmas last year, David recalled he barely said a word. He just looked around the room, smiled a little, and stayed quiet. That was the moment I knew he wasn't just tired. Something had changed. Frank wasn't angry. He wasn't depressed. He was slowly withdrawing mentally and emotionally into a quieter place inside himself. This kind of change can be painful to witness. It feels like losing someone twice. Once as their mind drifts, and again when their body eventually follows. But here's what's important to understand. They still feel, they still sense, they still need connection. Even when they don't respond the way they used to, even when they no longer remember names or stories, they still recognize kindness tone, gentle presence. The human heart doesn't forget how to feel even when the mind begins to forget everything else. So what can we do? Speak softly even when they don't answer. Sit beside them even if they don't start the conversation. Play music they love. Create calm, familiar spaces. And above all, don't try to bring them back. Instead, meet them where they are, because where they are now is exactly where they need you most. Many families try to fight this change. They ask more questions, they raise their voices, they try to remind correct fix. But when the brain is preparing to slow down, what it truly needs is not stimulation, it's stillness, not correction but comfort. So if your loved one has started speaking less, withdrawing more, or showing signs of gentle confusion, try not to fill the silence. Just hold their hand, look them in the eye. Let your presence do the talking, because in the end, connection isn't always about words. Sometimes love is the quietest thing in the room and also the loudest. If someone you love is beginning to drift inward, know that your calm presence can still reach them. If this part touched your heart, feel free to share a quiet memory in the comments. Sometimes the softest stories carry the most meaning. Have you noticed your loved one catching colds more often? Or taking longer and longer to bounce back from even the smallest of illnesses? Maybe they used to fight off the flu in a few days. Now a simple cough lingers for weeks, or a tiny cut on their arm takes forever to heal, turning red, swollen, or even infected. You might hear doctors call this just part of aging, but when it starts happening often and with greater impact, it's worth paying close attention. Because one of the most telling signs that a person may be entering their final year of life is a weakened immune system, and with it a slower ability to heal. Let's break down what's going on. As we grow older, our immune defenses naturally decline. But in the later stages of life, that decline becomes more pronounced. White blood cells become less efficient. The body becomes slower at recognizing and fighting off bacteria or viruses. Circulation weakens, making it harder for nutrients and oxygen to reach wounds. Skin becomes thinner, more fragile, and prone to injury. So what used to be minor, like a small scratch, a sore throat, or a urinary tract infection, can now turn into persistent or recurring problems. Let me tell you about Dorothy, a lively 84-year-old who loved gardening. Over one summer, she had 3 back-to-back infections, first a UTI, then bronchitis, then a skin rash that refused to go away. Her son Paul said she just couldn't shake it. We kept going back to the doctor getting more prescriptions, but each time it took longer for her to feel better. It wasn't that Dorothy was doing something wrong. Her body simply didn't have the strength to heal like it used to. This change is often hard for families. You want to fix it. You want the antibiotics to work. You want that bounce back you saw just a few years ago. But the truth is, in the final phase of life, the body is no longer focused on repairing. It's focused on preserving energy and slowly letting go of what's no longer essential. And that's why wounds may stay open, infections may return, and illnesses that were once mild may now feel heavy, drawn out, and draining. So how do we respond when healing slows down? We start by shifting from a mindset of curing to one of comfort. Instead of asking, how can I make this go away? We begin to ask, how can I ease their discomfort? How can I protect their skin, their dignity, their peace? Here are a few gentle practical ways to help. Keep the skin moisturized to prevent cracking. Ensure hydration. Water supports immune function. Clean small wounds promptly and watch for signs of infection. Use soft, breathable clothing to avoid irritation. Talk to the doctor about comfort-focused care, not just aggressive treatment, and sometimes instead of rushing to the ER for every symptom, it's worth asking, is this something we need to treat aggressively or something we can manage gently at home? Because in the final chapter of life, the goal isn't always to fight harder. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to make peace with what's unfolding and support our loved one with calm, steady care. And when you shift your mindset that way, you don't feel helpless. You feel present, empowered, and deeply connected. If this part helps shift how you see illness in later life, we'd love to hear from you. Sometimes sharing one quiet moment of insight can be the greatest comfort to someone else walking a similar path. Have you ever held the hand of someone you love and suddenly noticed how cold it feels? Not because the room is chilly, not because they just washed their hands, but because something deeper is happening. Maybe their fingertips turn a little blue. Maybe their breathing becomes shallow or uneven. Maybe in the middle of the night you hear a gurgling sound when they breathe and your heart skips a beat. These changes are more than just symptoms. They are whispers from the body telling us that it's beginning to slow down on the deepest level. In the final stages of life, the body gradually starts to shift. Blood flow away from the arms, legs, and skin, and directs it toward the vital organs, mainly the heart and brain. That's why you might notice cold hands and feet, pale or bluish skin, especially on the fingers, toes or lips, slower, irregular, or shallow breathing periods, where breathing pauses, then resumes suddenly. These are all signs that the heart isn't pumping as strongly, and the lungs are no longer exchanging oxygen as efficiently as before. One common breathing pattern that appears in the final weeks or days is called Cheney-Stokes breathing. It's a rhythmic cycle where breathing speeds up, becomes deeper, then slows, sometimes pausing entirely for several seconds. To those watching, it can feel frightening, like something is wrong. But for someone in the final phase of life, it's actually a natural part of the body's transition. Let me tell you about Henry, an 81-year-old Navy veteran who spent his last days at home, surrounded by his daughters and old jazz records. During his final week, Henry's breathing started to change. At times it was fast, then suddenly it would stop for a few long seconds, just long enough to make his daughter Clara hold her own breath in fear. She told me it was like waiting for a wave to come back to shore. When he'd start breathing again, I felt this mix of relief and heartbreak. His fingers turned cool and pale. He slept more and responded less. But when Clara put on his favorite Louis Armstrong tune, Henry's fingers tapped gently on the bedsheet, just barely. Even as his body was letting go, he was still there in his own quiet way. Here's the most important thing to remember. These changes are not emergencies. They are not cries for rescue. They are signals from a body that is doing something sacred and natural, gently preparing to rest. Your role during this time is not to fix what's happening. It's to create comfort. Keep the room quiet and softly lit. Offer sips of water or moisten the lips. Use a fan or humidifier if breathing sounds raspy. Prop your loved one up with pillows if lying flat makes it harder to breathe. Hold their hand, speak softly, play calming music. The biggest gift you can offer in these moments is presence without panic. Because when someone is nearing the end, they're not looking for solutions, they're looking for safety, familiarity, peace. Some families ask, should we call 911? Should we rush to the hospital? The answer depends on your goals. If your loved one is already nearing the end of their journey, more medical intervention may not bring comfort. It may bring confusion, distress, or pain. What they often need most is what you already have to give. Your warmth, your patience, your calming voice saying, "It's okay, I'm here." Because when breathing slows, when color fades from the fingertips, when circulation changes, what matters most is not the heartbeat. It's the heartbeat of love that surrounds them. If this part helped you understand a moment you've witnessed or may one day face, feel free to share a quiet reflection in the comments. Sometimes even in silence, we find connection. If you've made it this far, I want to pause for a moment and thank you. This hasn't been an easy journey. Talking about the final stage of life, especially when it involves someone you love, requires courage, tenderness, and a heart that's willing to listen. But by walking through these signs with us today, you've done something powerful. You've taken a step toward understanding, not avoiding, toward presence, not panic, toward peace, even in the face of something as difficult as goodbye. Let's take one more quiet moment to reflect. We've talked about 5 signs that often appear in the final year of life: unintentional weight loss. When the body no longer seeks food the way it used to, and the weight fades away without trying, persistent fatigue and weakness. When even simple tasks begin to feel like mountains and the body says, I need rest more than action. Mental confusion or emotional withdrawal. When words slow, memories scatter, and a person begins drifting inward, but never out of reach. Repeated infections or slow healing. When the immune system no longer fights like before, and the body chooses comfort over repair changes in breathing or circulation. When the rhythm of life grows softer, more uneven, and the body prepares to ease into stillness. These signs are not meant to alarm. They're not warnings to do more or fight harder. They're invitations to shift how we show up, to move from doing to simply being, to recognize that in these moments what matters most is not how many meals are eaten or steps are walked, but how much love is felt, how much peace is present, and how gently we hold space for what's unfolding. I've worked with many families over the years, and one thing becomes clear again and again. Most regrets don't come from not finding a cure. They come from not making time, not sitting quietly, not saying I love you while there was still time to hear it. And that's why recognizing these signs matters. Not to save someone from death, but to give them a death that is filled with dignity, comfort, and deep connection. If you're watching this because someone in your life is starting to show these signs, I want you to hear this. You are not alone. This path has been walked by many, and you are doing better than you think. There is no perfect way to prepare. There are no perfect words. But showing up with compassion, listening with your heart, and choosing love in quiet ways, those things matter more than you know. And when the moment comes, whether days or months or even a year from now, you will know that you showed up with presence. You will know that you listened. You will know that you gave them not just care, but company, and that may be the most healing gift of all. So take a deep breath. If today's message stirred memories, questions, or even tears, know that this is not the end of the conversation. This is the beginning of deeper awareness, of clearer compassion, of more intentional moments. If this video gave you comfort or clarity, I invite you to share just one thing you're taking with you. A thought, a memory, a promise to yourself. Leave it in the comments, not just for us, but for the next person who finds this video and needs to know they're not alone. And if you found this video meaningful, consider subscribing to the channel. There are more gentle conversations ahead about life, aging, care, and love in all its quiet forms. Thank you for being here. If this video gave you something to think about or simply made you feel a little more prepared, give it a like. And if you'd like to walk this journey of understanding aging with us, consider subscribing. We're here to share, to learn, and to care together.